Plan B.
We are back here on the BIA podcast, and not only are we best in America, but clearly the college football playoff committee thinks that Ohio State is best in America so far, as we are coming in as the number one team for the first iteration of this year's playoff rankings heading into week 10. So, just want to round off some of the top teams here. At number one, obviously, like I said, the Ohio State University. Number two, the Georgia Bulldogs. Number three, the team up north. Number four, Florida State. Five, Washington. Six, Oregon. And then we got some of the other teams. I'm not going to go through all the rest of the 25, but we want to go ahead and start off the pod. Thank you for listening in. Want to go ahead and start the podcast by talking about the college football playoff rankings are going into week 10. Phil, let me just get this off my chest, dog.
Go ahead, brother, man.
Let me get this off my chest, dog. I know there's a lot of reaction pods out there coming off of these rankings. I gotta say, Washington at 5 is a little bit of a crime. I don't have the rest of their schedule in front of me. I know one team from the Big Ten that they did play, and that was Michigan State. Michigan State is washed. We know that. But the team they beat is literally right behind them. They are a number 6 team. The team that they beat was Oregon. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule. Georgia has not beat a team within that's in the top 25, and yet they're number 2. The team up north has not faced anybody yet within the top 25, and they're number 3. But you have Washington, and I guess no, I can't say flat about Florida State because they faced LSU. But you've got Washington at number 5, and you have Oregon ranked at number 6, and yet they're behind both Georgia and Michigan. It's a head scratcher to me, man. I mean, I get it. They've dominated. Michigan has dominated their opponents. They're also going through cheating investigation, cheating scandal investigation. All of that all jumbled into one. It's a big old pot of jambalaya. I don't get it. As far as Ohio State being at number 1, I don't know how long we will stay at number 1. Seeing that Georgia is going to be playing Tennessee, Ole Miss, and I forget the third team right off the top of my head, but
Missouri.
Obviously, they play Georgia Tech, but who is it?
I said Mizzou.
Missouri. Yes, they play Mizzou this weekend. Thank you, but man, I think that obviously we're number 1 because of resume. What about everybody else's resume? That's where I'm at.
Okay, representing for the Huskies. I don't think there's a lot of people repping for the Huskies. I do think that if this rankings that came out maybe 3 weeks ago, I think you would have seen a lot more. You probably would have seen Washington up a little higher. I think that people felt like they were being dominant as well, and so they had that combination of dominance but a better schedule than, example, Michigan. But they've had a couple of unimpressive wins the last couple of weeks that I think is just like a bad week to get these first rankings out when it's like we just saw you struggle, and we're not seeing Michigan struggle. And I think that's as simple as, that's the reason. I really do think if this has been right after that Oregon game, I think you might have seen them number 1, honestly. They've had a bit of a hangover since that game, which makes sense. And they're still winning, so it's still fine. But yeah, I can definitely see that inconsistency in the rationale for the committee, or just seeing like what's important. Rankings don't matter that much in the first week they're coming out, except for the fact that ideally you're getting an idea of what the committee cares about. So Ohio State being number one, like you said, that's supposed to tell you that the committee is saying resume is the most important thing. Because that's the reason why, like you said, that's the reason why Ohio State's number one. So that says, okay, you should see that throughout the rest of the rankings. If it's important at number one, it should be important all the way down to number 25. And so to see that as soon as you get down to number 3, Michigan, who, Georgia and Michigan before the season both had weak schedules, but Michigan's has been weaker, admittedly. And yeah, they're number 3, and they're ahead of Florida State and Washington, who both have better resumes than them in terms of schedule strength. So, yeah, I mean, I was, before we started, I was kind of griping about the idea of Texas being ahead of Oklahoma, even though they played head to head, and the committee showing you in the 5 and 6 spots they do care about head to head, with Washington being ahead of Oregon, but then at the 7 spot saying, never mind, we actually just believe this team is stronger, and so, or they have a better win, and we'll take a strong win over head to head. So the committee does this. They just kind of pick and choose, and it's kind of wild they can get away with that. But who are they accountable to? Nobody. So I guess they can do
the sponsors.
That's the Allstate's going to call in and be like, "Hey, wait a minute,
Chick-fil-A.
This is a mockery."
Chick-fil-A, Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper.
ESPN.
Gonna say, yeah, ESPN is the biggest one, but I think ESPN doesn't mind if they have some wild stuff on there, because it gets people like you and I to talk about it.
Yeah.
People to watch the ranking. I actually did not watch tonight, taking my kids trick or treating, but I'll probably be watching in the future weeks, especially now that Ohio State's number 1, to see if we stay there. So it's exciting. I'll say this, as an Ohio State fan, I'm excited to see it's number 1. I know there were some people, online who are kind of, as Ohio State fans, who feel nervous about OSU being number 1, whether it's because of a curse of the team that starts off number 1 in the rankings, or like just concern about, being complacent or getting too comfortable. I just don't see that happening. And like, Georgia's been the number 1 team in the AP poll for literally like 48 weeks. And it's not like all of a sudden they've started to fall off. They are still Georgia, even though they've been the number 1 team in the country for almost 3 years. So I don't really buy that. If you're an elite team, then that should not scare you to be ranked number 1. To have everybody shooting for you and everybody giving you their best is something that Ohio State is used to anyway. It's not like Rutgers is like, oh snap, now we got to really come to play against Ohio State. They're like, come on, man. That doesn't make any sense. The only school that will be motivated by that would be Michigan at the end of the
year. Let me say one thing about that whole thing about this curse. Was Georgia not number 1 start in the first week of the rankings last year?
I'm not sure. I was wondering that, but I feel like they probably had to be, given they were coming off of a championship and they were playing and they were undefeated as well.
Yeah, and they won the national championship last year. So there was, I don't have it in front of me. There was a tweet I saw. There's been a brief previous year when Alabama was number 1 in the first iteration of rankings for that year, and they won the national championship. So it is not I can see if it was a curse, you know what I'm saying? And no team has ever won a national championship being ranked number 1 in the first polls, but that's not the case. But anyways, continue. My bad.
Yeah, no, I was just saying the only competitive thing I think would matter for would be the Michigan game. Going into that Michigan game, if Michigan is ranked behind Ohio State, even though they've beat Ohio State the last 2 years, I think at that point, certainly those coaches can and should be using that as motivation, saying, hey, Michigan, like they said Ohio State is better than you. But again, the motivation is going to be so high for that game for so many reasons. I just also don't see that mattering that much. But so I'm just going to be happy with it. I'm not going to look for any possible negatives of what can come from it. We're number one, and I think that I think you're right, Huge, in saying that Georgia will probably jump us once they get a couple of ranked wins because people already want to put them up there. So they just need a reason. And so it kind of makes sense for them to put them at two now and then let them play their way in. Ohio State doesn't have any more tough tests left this season until they play Michigan the very last game. And so, again, they have an opportunity to, if they do fall down in the next few weeks, jump back up with the win against Michigan, which would probably put them at two at the end of the season if Georgia's number one. So, yeah, man, it's exciting to see us there and not have to kind of worry about not being in that position that Washington's in. Washington has to climb up. They have to kind of try to play their way in or hope for somebody to lose. And it's nice not to have to be in that position.
I just got a message for all the Penn State fans. We know that there shouldn't be any Penn State fans listening to this podcast after our the game that basically where we beat them this year. I just need y'all to just show up. Just show up November 11th to y'all's game against Michigan, because if Michigan goes into Happy Valley and beats them by more than by two touchdowns or more, I should say, that's going to be looked at as a better win than when we played Penn State. Regardless of who we had on the field or not, that's going to be looked at as a better win. So I just need them to show up. I'm not even saying I obviously want Penn State to win that game, but I want to see what Michigan looks like against a competition with the pulse. But that's all I want to say. Do you have any last remarks before we move on from the CFP rankings?
No, not right now, man. I'm just excited to see what these ranked matchups end up doing to the polls and how things switch. USC is the last thing, actually. USC at 20 is kind of wild. Like, they don't pass
My
the eye
Pac-12
test.
champion.
Yeah, there's somebody on the committee must have picked them too, because they don't pass the eye test. They don't pass the resume test. They have 3 losses. They're ahead of all these teams with 2 losses. It does. I don't actually understand the rationale. Like, they're struggling to beat bad teams. They beat Cal by 1 point. They gave up 49 points to Cal. And we're saying they're the number 20 team. Like, I guess they have a quality loss at Notre Dame. That's literally the only positive thing you can say about UNC right now.
They got blown out, boy. So speaking of play on the field, as we move on, we know these rankings are going to change as these teams play each other. The last game we played was up in Madison as the Buckeyes beat the Badgers 24-10. We were talking before the pod episode, and Ohio State did not cover. It was we were a 14.5 favorite. We won by 14. One of the biggest things for me coming from this game, Travion Henderson. He was the team's player of the week from this game, player of the game. Travion Henderson was back. He said basically after the game that he had taken a cheap shot in that Notre Dame game in the first quarter. I've seen the video footage of what happened. It definitely was a late hit. When he was clearly down, the guy came in after he was already down and the play was over. Travion had 24 rushes for 162 yards. He averaged 6.8 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. That 1 touchdown run, man, I'm telling you, he needed that. The team needed that. And the offensive and obviously the offensive line, I should have put them in there in the middle somewhere before I said team. But I know everybody needed that, bruh. Buckeye Nation needed that run. We are going to definitely need to run the ball here, as Kyle McCord struggled in the first half. Second half, he came on, and Marvin Harrison also had a big game. So I focus more so on the offense. The defense, I didn't really expect Wisconsin's offense to do much. Um, I definitely, as far as sportsmanship is concerned, hope Braylon Allen has a speedy recovery. I love to play strength on strength, and unfortunately, he didn't play in the second half. But and I hope also that Lathan Ransom comes back too for shout out to BIA. And but yeah, those are my big takeaways. Offensive numbers, especially in the second half with McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. And like I said, Travion Henderson having a basically that 33-yard touchdown run and uh, and a victory, helping us to basically cap that game off. So, any
I,
thoughts on Wisconsin
I think you're bearing the lead a
or the
bit.
victory in Wisconsin?
I think you're bearing the lead a bit in terms, especially in terms of injuries. I mean, our quarterback was injured in that game, and we actually don't
Yeah, a
know
little
what his
little Nick,
status. Yeah, right.
yeah, a little Nick.
That dude was limping, and he didn't look the same after he got hurt. Uh, and I don't know.
He
We
did
don't actually.
better.
He did better.
Yeah, he. I mean, that when that was in the first half. Am I wrong, or was that second half? I don't remember.
That was in the second half. But I mean,
Okay, okay,
he might not have
I'm mistaken.
thrown an interception since then. He did throw an almost fumble after that. But no, I wouldn't say that he looked better. I mean, he finished the game, which is great. But um, I would say that he was not able to really put much weight on there in terms of stepping into his throws. I think he looked hurt, and maybe that's fine against a couple of opponents. But right now, Ohio State doesn't really have an established backup situation. Like we don't know who QB2 is. Could be Gebbia, could be Keinholz. Apparently, I think they're both taking some reps with the first team. At least rumors are saying they're both taking some first team reps. Or at least Kleinholz is actually. Um, so I don't know. I'm a little worried about that. And mainly I'm worried about it because Kyle McCord needs to get better. So he can't really take games off. He only need to be taking practice off. Apparently he was off of practice yesterday. He had like an excused absence. And I'm like, nah, that boy need to be in that.
Excused absence.
Yeah, I don't. And I listen. We don't want to laugh because it might turn out that he was visiting sick kids at a hospital or something like that. So
Playing
you know,
NCAA.
yeah, winning by 90 points like Cardale. So yeah, I just think that I think that's the biggest not the biggest takeaway from the game, but certainly the biggest story I think coming out of that is the health of the quarterback, and the question marks around what we have behind him, given that Devin Brown was already hurt. But also, just in terms of defense, I don't want to completely dismiss them. I think Tommy Eichenberg had a great. I mean, that whole goal line stand. Wisconsin got there, and it's like, oh dang, they're about to score, man. Here we go, touchdown. They're on the. They like, I think they had like 1st and 10 on like the 11 or 12, so they got a first down on like the 1 yard line. Got 4 more downs. Like, oh, here we go. And that defense just showed up, man. They were so clutch. They've been clutch all year, and I don't want to because they have been clutch all year. I don't think we should take that for granted. Like that was a great stop, including Tommy Eichenberg's stop where he just like sheds a block and just stopped 1-on-1 in the hole. Big running back coming at him, and he just is like, "Nah, you're not going further than this. Like I'm holding you up for like 3 seconds by myself until the rest of my boys come." So definitely shout out to the defense, shout out to the Silver Bullets, who definitely made a difference in that game.
Yeah, I think to your point, goal line stop in that first half. Basically, we in the second half we needed an impossible no look pass in the red zone um, by by Braden Locke for their only touchdown of that game. Um, but moving on to Rutgers this week, as we do head to Piscataway. It's for the audience and just so that they know, this is a game that you definitely want to go to. This is a bucket list item for Phil. He wants to go to a Buckeye versus Rutgers game in Piscataway. Uh, he's rolling his eyes, but
Yeah. Why
he
am I
knows I'm
wrong?
right.
Why am I rolling my eyes? Why am I?
You're rolling your eyes because we had an opportunity to go, and I did whiff on it. So, but we'll make it happen, man. In 2 years, we'll make it happen. But that game, we are an 18 and a half point favorite on the road. So this is going to be, we're heading there. Number one, I'm already looking at basically on Yahoo Sports, man. It already has the one next to our name. So how are the Buckeyes going to fare in that game in your eyes as we head into Piscataway, the birthplace of college football?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The birthplace of college football. It's that's a cool like tagline to get to have the rest of their of their history, even though they are some booty. They're actually not booty this year. That's not fair. They actually are a pretty good team this
Yeah.
season. They're having their best season in recent memory, and so I think that's something to be respected. They're Michigan's best win, so we got to respect that. Um, and they're really a strong defense. They're actually the number 9 defense in total defense, and so and number 13 in scoring. So really, like they're doing well. They haven't played Ohio State yet, but I think that's the defense to be respected, especially given the fact that our offense has not been smooth. Even when we've scored, we have not been smooth. And so, knowing that we are work in progress on that side, and knowing that's their strength, I think I think that's going to be interesting for us. In terms of their secondary, they do have. I don't know if you know this, Yuji. One of their defensive backs. His name is Desmond Igbinosun.
No
If
way.
that sounds familiar, that's the brother of Davison on our team.
Oh wow! I was gonna
So,
say had to be
yeah, yeah.
because
So
Igbenosun's from Jersey.
yeah, so his
Yeah.
brother is playing at the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers. So that'll be a cool story that they'll get to tell in the broadcast a couple times, and hopefully it's not the case of who's playing better. Hopefully that's obvious that it's our Igbinosun, but that should be interesting. And then in terms of their offense, they're really a running team. So they're not very high scoring offense, but they emphasize the run, and so I think that should honestly help us. Our defensive tackles have really been looking good against the run, and so I'm actually pretty confident in their ability to stop the run, and that's their strength. That's what they want to do, and so yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about our defense in that game, but offensively, it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll actually be a challenge, even though it won't feel like it. It won't, looking at the ranking, a one against unranked, it won't say it, but the reality is that this Rutgers team has their best record. I think I think they've already like eclipsed their most wins they've had in like over a decade at this point of the season. Like they haven't had this many wins in a very long time. So
Oh well, yeah. 2023. Yeah, I got you. I was gonna
yeah,
say.
even before, man, I'll find it. I'll find out their last time having being this good. But yeah, so definitely in the like return of the Greg Schiano era, this is their best team already in week 10. So yeah, we'll see what happens on the field. What do you got? What are
Yeah, I
you
was gonna.
seeing?
Let me say that when you said that this was their basically they've kind of equalized their amount of wins through the years. I remember I think it was 2020 they went to a bowl game, but I believe they only won like 4 games or so. I know that was a condensed season because the team that couldn't play in that bowl, basically in that bowl game was ridden with COVID. So, um, football is it's definitely chess, not checkers. Football is a strategic game. And when I think about our defense and I think about the games that we've played so far, we are number one defense in terms of yards allowed per play. And we have not been able to say that in a very long time. One of the things I think about when I think about that stat is, and basically what I've also seen with my own eyes, is that nobody has figured out us out yet. And we've been getting better. That's the key, is the fact that our defense has been getting better. In my mind, it's like, do I think that Rutgers is going to figure us out? Are they going to expose something? We've had injuries in the secondary, and nobody has still, has yet to figure us out. So I think for me, biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to, I didn't give the defense a lot of love in my review of Wisconsin because it's kind of been it's been consistent. It's been the standard, and I want to see that continue in this game as we do face an opponent that we normally do steamroll, uh, but they have improved since last year. They've been improved over the years, I guess. And so I am definitely happy that they are bowl eligible. And I respect Rutgers more than I have in these past few years. But I'm excited to see how our defense fares against their offense, and I want to see what they do to counter our looks, and whatever defensive strategy we have on Saturday.
Two things. One, I looked it up. Their last time winning more than 5 games was in 2014. So that was 9 years ago that they won more than 5 games. Okay, so the decade was not an exaggeration. They won 8 games that year. So listen, Rutgers, you've already done it. You've already accomplished what you need to accomplish this year. Just chill, relax, hit your feet up, celebrate the best season in a decade. And then two, don't forget what happened this game last year. Don't forget. You remember? Is it clicking?
Well, mine went off,
No, I'm talking about
and
between the
yeah.
coaches. The
Oh yeah.
coaches.
Yeah,
Beef. Oh
yeah.
no, yeah. They was ready to scrap. All right, Schiano was ready to scrap. They was in that joint like. So, listen, that's gonna be a part of it. Now, as a Buckeye fans, like we kind of forgot about that because who cares? Those Rutgers, but maybe Mirko punter, he better get that ball away quick because they gonna be going for him. Schiano likes to do trick plays and stuff like that. Big games, he likes to pull out all the stops, which is I think really cool. It makes it fun to watch a Rutgers game. And he'll be motivated because they did squash their beef at the end, but in the moment it was looking like, I mean, he came all the way over across the field. So so we'll see what happens with that game. And I'll give you plus or minus 1.5 times that the announcers bring that up. I'm taking the over. And the over on the Igmanosin brothers thing because they got to talk about something in a Rutgers game, so they're gonna be like definitely leaning heavy on the storylines when they can find them.
Well, I do want to say that point taken, and made by you. But just shouting out Maya Williams. I mean, Ryan Day said today in a press conference that he had a season-ending injury, and so just want to definitely shout him out, man. He's meant a lot to us as fans, and his performance. I mean, he had a great game. Not great. He had a good running performance against Penn State, but definitely want to shout him out, man, for just as a Buckeye who's down and out for the rest of the year. But yeah, I mean, the coaches they did almost scrap last year. I think that man, at the end of that game, they had a 10-second sort of meetup at midfield. They talked it through. You know how guys, we do. Um,
Not me.
but
I
I
promote
mean,
nonviolence.
yeah, Ryan Day, he's gonna be fighting the offense this week if we don't get some points up on that board. Yeah, that's who he's gonna be fighting. Um, Speaking of
Good point.
points,
Speaking of points,
speaking of points,
let me
I'm
go
gonna let you go.
first. Yeah, let me go first.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
listen, man, this offense been burning me, man. Every time I just assume they're gonna score points, they just don't. Like, I don't even. I'm not giving up on them, but I am definitely no longer sticking my neck out for them. So I'm gonna go with the final score: Ohio State 31, Rutgers 7. I think it'll be a good defensive performance. Again, their offense is a running offense, so they'll probably have the ball a little bit longer, less possessions, or just less time. So I can see that lowering the score of the overall game. I'm actually not sure what the over under is right now. I'll check that while you're giving your prediction. But yeah, I'm going with 31-7 Buckeyes.
All right, all right. I will say, man, if this was a game on NCAA and I was trying to get Marvin Harrison Jr. a Heisman, I would definitely be hitting 4+ touchdowns, making sure that he got his stats. Um, but this is an NCAA EA Sports football game. I will say that my prediction is going to be that Ohio State wins with a
Bold.
score of 27-13.
Mm.
So yeah. Hopefully, I want them to prove me wrong. I want them to score more than 27. I want them to score, obviously, more in your field where you're at with 31. But got to see it first. Got to see
Yeah,
it.
I did look up the over under, and it is 42 and a half. So that's definitely a low scoring game. Um, and the spread is 18 and a half, which makes that predicted score for Vegas, Ohio State, basically 30, Rutgers. I think 31, Rutgers 12. So it's kind of like a combination of our two
Hmm.
scores. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah.
Okay. Well, and speaking
Mm.
of over under, we don't have over under category in our pick six picks, but we do have picks. We do have a lock. We have a toss up, and we have an upset category. And so that's coming up next. Our pick six picks for week 10. It is the best bets from the BIA podcast with a game we like to call Pick Six, where Phil picks three, I pick three, and that makes six. So we want to recap basically week 9 and go through those picks. We came into the week tied 11-11. My lock, Oklahoma State, was a 7.5 point favorite. That hit. My toss up. The Clones, shout out to Matt. Thank you, brother. They got me a victory. But my upset, the Gators did not pull it off against the Dogs. So I started off with 11, and my lock and toss up gave me 2 points. So I am heading into week 10 with 13. Don't really have much to review. There's nothing really that point. I didn't watch any of these games, so I don't really have much to really say about any of them. I'm just happy that Oklahoma State, I think this is the first time I actually picked them, and they came through for me. So appreciate it, Coach Gundy. Thanks.
Yeah, rough week for me. Tennessee, my only victory. They've actually, I bet them a lot this season, which is kind of surprising. I don't really love that program, but they helped me out. So shout out Tennessee, USC. You're dead to me. That's all I got.
So because your lock didn't hit, that's -1. Your toss up, however, equalized your week. So you came in with 11, you left with 11. So we're heading into week 10, and I've got 13. Phil has 11. So because I won the week before, I get to start off with the picks. I get to pick the category and the team. This was a tough week, man. This was a tough week. But I'm gonna start off with the toss up, and this is a team that helped me out a few weeks ago in a toss-up game. They had a big game against Oregon. Give me the Huskies, the Washington Huskies, over the USC Trojans on Saturday night, as the Huskies are a 3.5 point favorite. This is my toss-up pick, taking the Huskies.
What makes you like the Huskies, Yuji?
Um, Man, I mean, USC's defense. That's what makes me like the Huskies. I mean, who's going to be able to get a stop? I have way more confidence in Washington's defense. So
Enough said. Enough said. Um, okay, I'm gonna take the biggest game of the day, in my opinion, going down south
okay,
to
okay, okay.
Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We've got 6-2 LSU taking on 7-1 Alabama. This game is usually a good game every year. It's not officially a rivalry, but in reality, it's been one of the better games in the SEC West the last 10 years. This one, I think, will be no different. Two teams matched pretty evenly. I'm gonna go with the better quarterback. That's Jaden Daniels. Give me
Whoa!
the Tigers. Go Tigers. I've got LSU winning this game on the road as a 3-point underdog. I've actually bet Alabama has been my surest bet this season. I've bet them to win, I think, like 3 or 4 times this year. I do think that they, have been underrated in terms of people feeling that they have fallen off. But, LSU was able to their offense was able to outplay Alabama's offense last year, and Alabama's offense is worse this year, and LSU's is not really. So, to me, I really think that LSU is going to win this game, and I think I would take them on the over, or take their team total over, because I think they're going to be able to score some points. And when Alabama's going 3-and-out, which they have a bunch of times this year, they've had some struggled. They struggled for entire quarters offensively, and they just played teams that haven't been able to capitalize. And I think LSU will. So, give me the Tigers.
Wow. I was literally about to put Bama in the sheet.
Yeah,
Like, I
man.
was literally about to put BAMA, because you know what I'm saying. You've been on them this season.
I
They
have.
helped you out for
That's why you
sure.
should trust me. Trust me as the person who's been on Bama. Everybody out there, listen. I've been on Bama, but this is the week to jump off. Take LSU, man. Take LSU.
All
Their
right. Well,
quarterback's trying
don't
to
get
win.
booked.
Their quarterback's trying to win the Heisman. So, this is the game. He needs a Heisman moment in this game to be able to do so.
Don't get bookmarked now.
Listen, bookmark it.
All right.
All right.
Where we heading?
So, um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the upset, because the lock I'm just still struggling with right now, in full transparency. So upset, a spread of 7 or more, where I like the underdog. None of them, but I will choose one for the purpose of this game, and I'm gonna choose a team that I bet against for their first loss, and I'm just hoping for the same. I'm gonna take the Virginia Tech Hokies to upset Louisville. They are a
That's gonna be a
nine.
good game.
They're a 9.5 point favorite. Louisville is. To be honest, Tech is playing pretty well right now. Um, they are 4-4, and they have won 3 of their last 4. Their one loss being Florida State. So they're playing pretty well. It's just I would love it more if it was at home for Tech. I don't love it on the road, but it's still, I think, the best situation, best game I see. So give me Virginia Tech upsetting Louisville.
Okay, that's I like that pick. I think that's going to be a good game. I hope it's not on the CW. If it's on the CW, you have a greater chance of winning. Oh no, it's not. It's on the ACC network. The underdog has been definitely killing it on the CW this year. Man, I'm trying to find my upset. I literally, okay. Here we go.
Here
Now
we
I
go,
see it.
y'all. He already backtracked.
I see it. 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 Oh man, dang! I just realized where they're playing. Dang, I'm still roll with it.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna go. This is not a big game. Obviously, some upsets are just not gonna be a big game. But I'm gonna take Arizona State over Utah. I did not pay attention to this earlier. It is the game is in Utah, and I'm not feeling that good about it. One thing I've recognized with some of these picks for an upset pick, is that you want to pick a good team, and Arizona State by far is not a good team, but they've been making do with that roster, and so knowing that this team also is not eligible for a bowl, even if they win 6 games this year, that they are basically banned from a bowl based on some stuff that happened with Herm Edwards when he was there. They've been playing pretty scrappy, man. So I'm gonna take Arizona State. I do not feel confident about that at all.
Oh man. Okay.
Well, if you have no other comments on that game, I'm gonna go ahead and bring us home with a
I'm
lock.
gonna say more on that game later.
Oh, I don't know what that means, but okay. Um, oh, I see. um, okay. Well, having said that, I am gonna go with the team whose head coach was ticked off at Coach Prime earlier this year, whose mascot literally lost their head right before that game, and who is on a mission for their quarterback to make a Heisman late run here, who's plastered, not plastered, but has some advertisements up in New York City. Give me Oregon. They are a 24-point favorite over Cal on Saturday. So I'm going to take the Ducks.
Okay. Um. Yeah. I alluded to this just a second ago, and I had thought about this game for a while, and I wasn't sure um, what I wanted to do with it. But Huge inspired me because I love going against him. I haven't lost in a head-to-head uh, battle this year. I'm gonna take Utah as my lock. Minus, let's see, minus 11 um, against Arizona State. The reason why is because I think Utah over the past seasons has shown the ability to bounce back after losses. They kind of in the last few years had been losing a game in the beginning of the season and then kind of finishing strong. So this loss in the middle of the season is a little bit later than usual, but I still think they have this coaching staff has shown the ability to get their team back up for the next game. And they hadn't lost a game at home, I think, since like 2018, not including the COVID year. They did lose last game to a great Oregon squad, but I think like instead of making them make me question that streak, I'm gonna say, let's get back to the mean here, and Utah winning. I think that Utah's gonna win. The 11 points is a little much because they're not a great scoring team right now. But I still kind of I think Arizona State can be like kind of a gunning team, when they get down, kind of just like chucking it. So hopefully that gets me a late cover where the game is already over, but they still are trying and give me an interception, pick six, maybe in the fourth quarter to lock it up.
Yeah, man. I'm just looking back through the list. I mean, I'm like, man, this was a tough week to pick for the lock and the upset. But I'm looking, man. I should have picked Mizzou. I would definitely be rooting for them against Georgia, but
Yeah, that hook is tough. The 14.5, right, for Mizzou. You were
I
taking
see fifth
you're taking Mizzou to upset. You're saying you would
to
have taken
upset.
them.
I'm saying it. I was taking them to upset for our competition. I don't think that they will. I mean, I'm just saying that I think that they would have been a better pick than Arizona State. But given the competition that I mean, Arizona State is playing Utah, Mizzou is playing Georgia.
Yeah.
Utah is not a bad team. That's the thing. When I first started that upset pick, I'm like, man, Utah barely loses in Utah. So it's during the day though, so it's an early start. Maybe Arizona State can figure something out. We'll see. But basically, starting off with the recap, I did pick Arizona State as my upset, going in a little different order this week. My toss up, I'm taking the Huskies over USC. And as my lock, I'm taking the Oregon Ducks as a 24-point favorite over, forgot who they playing, Cal Bears. So I did pick all Pac-12 teams and all Pac-12 games.
So my upset, I'm choosing Virginia Tech over Louisville. My toss up, give me the LSU Tigers upsetting the Alabama Crimson Tide at home. Um, and for my lock, I'm going to take Utah winning and covering 11 points against Arizona State, and Utah is at home in that game.
There you have it. Those are our pick six picks. Trying to share the screen. Go ahead and zoom in real quick. Should have already did it. Who's that guy? I don't know, who's that guy? If you're watching this on YouTube, we got an interesting picture there. But anyways, I'm kind of stalling, but I do have my script up this week. Thank you all for listening to today's episode. Follow us on social media at BIA.pod. That's BIA.pod on Instagram and TikTok. And on YouTube at BIA_pod. That's BIA_POD. And if you've listened to this episode on Apple or Spotify, before you leave us a 5-star review, and we would surely appreciate it. As always, I'm Hugue. That's Phil. OH.
IO. Go Bucks.